I'm going to go ahead and hit record just so I know I've done it. Checked all my pre-show boxes. And okay.
All right, 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
Oh, here we go. Have a good show.
Welcome to Women Thriving Unapologetically with Lynsie McKeown. Over the next hour, you will hear raw, honest, and inspiring conversation between Lynsie and her guests, discussing how to thrive, live joyfully, and abundantly in spite of life's challenges. Now, here is your host, Lynsie McKeown.
Hello, and welcome to Women Thriving Unapologetically. I'm Lynsie McKeown, and it just feels like such a blessing to be here today. I was mentioning to our guest, who I will introduce here shortly, before we started recording, that this week's been really challenging for me. And yes, it's only Thursday. And how I was at this point where I just really felt like giving up everything, like really giving up everything, just because it's just becoming too hard. It's hard to market myself. It's hard to do all the things as an entrepreneur and to put your heart out there over and over and over again and not feel really supported. And so, it makes me feel tender to say those words. It wasn't even words that I was planning on saying, just kind of coming out in this moment. And that's really how things work for me. Is just, a lot of times these messages just come through in the moment. And part of my process is just being vulnerable and sharing what is necessary in the moment so that we can feel connected. So I would really like us to just feel ourselves connecting to each other in this moment, simply by what we always do, is just taking this moment to stop and pause and breathe, and perhaps placing one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly, and just taking several deep, full breaths, because we all experience these moments where we just want to say enough is enough, where we all feel like we're not really being nourished and supported in the way that we feel we deserve or need, or just simply what we have to have in that moment in order to be able to put the next foot forward. But when we stop and we connect to the body through the breath, we can also feel into this deeper understanding that there is a connection there. There's a connection to our own hearts, the wisdom of the body, but also the wisdom of the earth. And so let's just take another deep breath in and out, allowing the breath to create space for us to feel that connection. And you're welcome to stay here with your hands upon your body and just simply breathing and listening to the show. But I would love to bring in our amazing guest today, because she's going to talk to us today about how, what are we doing to find that support and that creativity? Are we supporting and creating the world that we want to live in every day? And are we living with that awareness that everything that comes into your life, even the hard stuff, is aligned with your soul's desire? And how, by honoring the inner landscape and the outer landscape, that we can really come back to this place that is really a blessing and just a loving of humanity and the earth again. So today's guest is Christi Idavoy. Now, Christi is based in the lush tropical mountains of Costa Rica. There's no envy there at all, ladies, I swear. No, I would be lying. Okay, so Christy shares her insight as a movement and mindfulness coach. And she's guided by the belief that all bodies are telling a valuable and honest story. She asks us to notice how we feel in the present moment, and then guides us to find balance by honoring what is. And this inquisitive awareness lies at the heart of her teachings. And through respect, acceptance, and gratitude, the body mind altar restores itself and achieves deep states of gratitude and self love. And the chemicals that are released in the body through these loving and thankful emotions are really the main ingredient of the movement medicine that Christy shares. And so I am so honored to have her here. And she has this incredible background of in the tradition of Swami Rama's Himalayan yoga science and philosophy in New York City. And she's a dedicated Pilates practitioner and a senior Pulsar Pilates educator with a background in Feldenkrais, gyrotonic, and somatic healing. So I am so honored to have you here today, Christy. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much, Lynsie. What an amazing space you've created. Thank you. It already feels so safe. So yeah, thank you for that. Already so moved. We haven't even started.
Lordy, what's going to come up now?
Oh, wow.
And I think that's really, it's not just the space that I'm creating, but the guests that I have on. So for me to immediately feel comfortable with you on the show, there's something about your presence like, oh, what's coming out of my mouth now? And that's the space that we can create together. I find it very fascinating and amazing how women, when they come together with just this shared intention to have space and have these conversations, that a lot can come to the surface that's unexpected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It is so powerful and so important for women to come together. And yeah, as I was listening to you, and right, we're really talking about this relationship of the inner and the outer world, and how we experience that. And really the thing that keeps dropping down is remember the unity. Remember, right? I like reminding myself, remember that it's all one, and how everything is a reflection. And so this idea of these axioms, as above, so below, as within, so without. And so, as you were saying, honoring and accepting even the stuff that we're not thrilled about, the things that we might throw us into the seat of, why did this happen to me? Or how could they talk to me that way? Or I feel so disrespected. And while all of that is super valuable, and yes, we do feel those things and we do go there. And I love how you shared, the last 2 days, having those moments of like, I'm done, and allowing that to come through, rather than, I think the lingo these days is that spiritual bypass of like, oh no, I'm just going to burn some sage and chant until it goes away. And it's like another form of repressing, right? It's another way of numbing ourselves through our spiritual practices. So what you're offering, what you've opened with, of this idea of the reflection, of seeing it, of what is this reflecting back to me? And it is very vulnerable and uncomfortable, because it forces us to say, I, in some way, subconsciously, because I would never do this to myself consciously, have participated in co-creating this experience, because it is just that, right? That's the power of the circle, is that we are in a co-creative reality, right? Whether or not we're participating consciously, we are in a co-creative experience. And it's so exciting that now in 2023, we have the epigenetics and these new fields of science, of neurocardiology, where there's research, and it's like, wow, these things that 20 years ago, I remember watching What the Bleep Do We Know, and it just being so far out, and how, thank you, Bruce Lipton, still around, still teaching, still talking. And now it's like, wow, all right, this stuff that felt so abstract a few decades ago is now, sometimes I'm like, am I just in my bubble so deeply that it feels like it's the mainstream? I'm not even sure what the mainstream is anymore, but it feels very accessible and not as nuanced as it was. It's not so far-fetched. So yeah, and like, what a great conversation to be having during an eclipse and a new moon of, right? Like it's literally, I do live in the mountains of Costa Rica, and I'm a wannabe farmer. I'm surrounded by lots of farmers. And the new moon is the time where you plant seeds, where the energy is really literally and figuratively receding back. So when we understand, right, like as human beings, we need symbols. We are symbolic creatures, metaphors, right? Symbolism permeates every part of our day. And then to realize that when you look at it from a chemical or a biological point of something as practical as growing food, it's the same. It's actually not a metaphor. We literally plant seeds in the energy that we're in today, and it takes us deep inside, which can create the feeling of why, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I feel tired. Maybe I feel tired because the energies around me are saying, take some naps this week. Put stuff down this week. In this now moment, you don't need to figure it out. You like allow yourself to have that space. And what you shared earlier of like, when I feel like I've got to let go of stuff, it's because there's something new that wants to come through. Right. And something I've been exploring within myself lately is noticing my discomforts. And this week too, or a couple of days ago, I had some moments where I was like, what? Why is this happening to me? And using and realizing that everything I feel, they're like vibrational indicators, right? It's like a yield, a red light, a green light. And allowing myself to pause and see, okay, this is a vibrational indicator. And right in that now moment, I may not understand what it's about or what it's indicating, but I know that it's telling me that something needs to shift, something needs to change, because I'm not happy, right? It's not something that I want more of. So immediately it's that desire that we talked about a few months ago when we first met, right? How is this reflecting what's going on internally and subconsciously? What would the absence of this look like? And that's where I focus, rather than focusing on, I don't want this, no, thank you, I really don't want this. Because then what I'm sending out are more experiences of what I don't want, right? What I'm attracting, the message I'm sending out is to have more of what I don't want, rather than what would it look like, right? So if I felt like someone was deceitful, I literally had an experience getting a septic tank cleaned out this week where it just didn't feel right. And so it was like, okay, I want to work with people that are honest, that are straightforward, that are not trying to take advantage of other people. So that's what the absence of that would look like. And so I'm going to focus those moments of getting pissed off, instead of, seeping in that vibration. What would it look like if that was, what is the opposite of that? What is it that I actually do want to draw in? Because again, I need to put that out so that my experience reflects that back to me.
And it's so, I mean, you've said so much here. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many different ways that we could go. And I just want to reflect back that I really appreciate you bringing in the new moon, because, we get in our bubbles and we start to, spirituality is definitely is somewhat commodified in some areas. And but to really understand that these new moon practices, there is a real rich, energetic, potency to them. Like it's because, we go back to our connection to the earth, and the indigenous cultures knew that, okay, at the new moon, this is the time that we plant our seeds, because it's the time that they'll be able to take root and the energy is there to really nourish them. And so that's why we do these new moon practices. It's just not something kind of like fun or kind of, I know kitschy isn't the right word, but, and so just because I would love to come back to how our connection to the earth can actually create these rituals for us that help us feel more nourished. But this idea, like, I love what you said about what would the absence of this feel like? And it's so interesting that you say that, because when you're saying that, I thought about these certain things that are in my life. As an entrepreneur, there's so many different things that we are supposed to do. There's my air quotes for those that are just listening. And it's like, oh, if I let go of this one thing, like I was thinking of it in this terms, like if I let go of that, what would the absence of that feel like? And I felt my energy expand. Even though as a business person, I've been told over and over again, this is a key element to growing my business. And I'm like, you know what? Why am I not trusting that? And what if it happens if I just let go of it and then plant the seed of what it is I really want?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I really, I had 3 businesses going right before COVID. My husband and I did, between 2 of us. And I took lots of business marketing courses and even got certified as a digital ninja, because as an entrepreneur, there's so many different hats and you're trying to figure out, and then you're given all of these blueprints and rules, which are really valuable and really powerful at certain moments. And then I've observed myself letting go of all of them. And I mean, I share some things sometimes with the way I'm making decisions and going about doing things at this stage in my life with my dad, who's really a huge financial mentor, and my Polestar dad, the founder of Polestar Pilates. And they love me, and they really honor me and my intuition. And they'll also tell me, don't tell too many people about that, about the way you're making decisions. But yeah, right. It's like, who's to say that there aren't 1,000, 1,000,000 different ways that we can't take the information we've been given and then practice, right? Tune into, when we're talking about how can we tap into nature, into the earth's wisdom, which again is our own wisdom. We're just like, I feel like we are, we have amnesia. Like we've humans have, right? The dogs, I have a few dogs, when they eat something and they're not feeling well, right away, you see the dogs go outside and they know what grass to eat. They know which grasses are the bitters. They know what grass not to eat, right? Humans, we have lost this intuition of knowing, okay, these, like foraging is intuitive. So how do we restore that intuition so that we do feel safe in listening to ourselves? Because a lot of times, right, we second guess and we triple and quadruple guess. And it's really a lot of observation. So going back to what we said earlier of dropping back and sitting and observing, this idea of, it's Donald Neil Walsh idea of, we are not human doings, we are human beings. And so in order to tap into our truth, to our essence, it requires a lot of listening and observation, right? God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we should listen twice as much as we speak. But yeah, our culture is very much about go and do and create and conquer. And it's not easy to keep up with that paradigm.
Yeah, and that cultural story is really to our detriment. It has really pulled us away from our connection to the earth, into that wisdom and trusting it. Like you said, like, and even, your Polestar father, he honors and respects the way that you do business, but it's still that thing, oh, but don't tell anybody. It's like, well, what if we really just got to that point? Like, okay, we could trust that and we could speak about it to give other people permission to be like, okay, it's okay. Like, this is how I do business. And it's not like everyone else is doing it. It's not the way that we've been taught for, I don't even know how many years. And it's okay. And because it actually works for me, and giving yourself permission to do a different way. And this is what I've been really seeking for a long time, are those circles where it's a completely different way of doing things. How can we rewrite the way that we do business, how that we do our relationships to others and our work? And I haven't really quite found it, because I feel like we have to come back to it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And it's a dance. It's a dance, because when we're dancing with very traditional circles and institutions, yeah, it's knowing how to be a chameleon also, because at the end of the day, right, my intention is always to do good and to share and to be understood. So if I come in telling someone, oh yeah, I consult the North to make real for that, I'm just going to get the door slammed in my face.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So having that dance of like, maybe not, don't share, but how do you share? When, again, we plant the seed when the soil's ready.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. So you went out just a little bit there. I think we had a slight pause in the Wi-Fi connection, but what I'm hearing you say is like, yeah, we want to be able to share, but understanding how we share it and the audience that we're sharing it with, like what part of it that can we share with them, so there's enough of a seed that's planted, and so that can actually grow and take root and grow. And it's not that we are suppressing our voices or hiding who we are, how we work. It's just understanding how to continue to share our voices in a way that which we know it's going to be received. And when that seed takes root, then we can share a little bit more when they're ready. Because it's always, I think there's 4 gateways to speech. And one of them is like, okay, you might have something important to share, and it might be truthful, and it might be coming from great intentions, but if the audience isn't ready to receive it, then you don't say it.
You don't say it. Exactly. Is it
Yeah.
true? Is it kind? Is it necessary?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are up to our first break of the show. So if you are listening, just in this short break, just take a moment to perhaps just place your hands on your body or be outside and place your feet on the earth and just kind of feel into that subtle movement, that subtle connection that you have to your inner earth and the outer earth. And just stay tuned, because we're going to be right back after this short break.
All right, great job. We're all clear. Back in about 2.
Thank you, Matt. How are you feeling?
Good.
Okay. I love how we have the framework for questions, and I don't know if we've hit any of them, but we'll come back to some of them. I think it's great. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, it always happens to me. I'll prepare things for filming and sharing, and then I end up teaching something completely different, and it's fine. Just going through the effort of preparing just helps all the energy be directed.
Yeah. And it helps ground, because I don't like showing up. I know some podcasters love to completely organic, like let's prepare nothing. And I'm always like, okay, like you said, just having that framework feels like a little bit of a safety net, and also helps get my mind kind of centered in that container.
Exactly.
And helps me ground. And so,
Yeah,
yeah. And then we get to see where it takes us.
exactly.
Yeah. See, what part of the mountains are you in? Are you in Arenal?
I am close to Chiripo. Is
Sure.
the bigger, it's the tallest mountain in Costa Rica. And it's, I think, the 5th tallest in Central America. It's not a volcano, so it's unique in that way. And yeah, we're pretty close. We're actually surrounded by like national forest, and we're as close to the peak in the center of the country that comes down from California, that mountain range that becomes the Andes in
Oh, yeah.
South America.
Nice. Okay, we're ready to
All
go
right, we
back.
are just about to come back. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're listening to Women Thriving Unapologetically with Lynsie McKeown. Have a question for Lynsie or her guests? Want to share your story? Email Lynsie at thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. That's thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. Now back to the show. Here again is Lynsie.
Hello and welcome back to Women Thriving Unapologetically. We are here with Christi Idavoy, and she's joining us from the mountains of Costa Rica. And I'd love just to jump in and talk about this relationship to Earth and why it is so important to have this relationship.
The short answer is it's where we come from. It's our mother. Yeah. Being out here and being surrounded by forest for a few years now consecutively, I realize how the earth gives us everything and doesn't ask for anything in return. There's nothing that we need to do to be worthy of water and sunlight and food and clean air and balance. Yeah. I think that the short answer is that it's that feeling of coming home. So when I first started teaching yoga, there was still a lot of confusion about, is it a religion? If I'm Christian, can I practice yoga? Can I chant? Right? So it'd be like, just do the yoga without any of the spiritual stuff or chanting stuff. And so I said, okay, right, go. It's meeting people where they are. And so we would say home instead of om. And I, the connection with nature, with earth, and I'm from New York City originally, right? My mom's from Manhattan. I was born in the city, surrounded by cement and on the Hudson River, which is one of the most contaminated rivers in the United States, if not the world. And you can have a plant in your apartment in a pot of dirt, and you can connect with the earth. So I just want to, so that people that might be listening that are in a cubicle or in a car, living in a city apartment, we can all connect, because as my very wise 7-year-old daughter said, Pachamama, the earth is underneath all of this cement. The cement is also made of earth, right? There's actually nothing here that doesn't come from here. Maybe there is with all the space travel, but as far as I know, I think in pretty big terms, we can generalize and say the earth knows what to do with everything here. I mean, there's even mushrooms that will disintegrate plastic and oil, petroleum-based waste. So, the more that we feel connected, the more that we remember who we are, where our food comes from, really connecting with our food, the more that we will take care of the earth. So I think sometimes these movements, while I'll trust that they come from really a good place of we need to protect the earth and we need to do all of these things to save the planet, and the green movements are really important. And I've also experienced individuals that are all about supporting the Green Party and they're environmentalist. And then I see the way they treat their children or the way they treat their spouses and their family, and there's a massive disconnect. So I really feel that the connection with the earth first starts with our connection with ourselves, and honoring and remembering that our breath is the wind, our blood is water, our body is earth, our spirit, the spark that animates us is fire, and restoring that relationship of us with ourselves. And the more that we are in center, right? And it's a very traditional yogic philosophy. The more that we experience this yoking together, this coming back to center, this feeling whole, which we feel when we come home, the rest is just the side effect of having a society, a humanity of people that feel really connected to themselves. Because once I love myself and I'm in my center, then I can honor and I can love and I can actually move from a place that is vibrationally a higher frequency. Because I can recycle plastic all day long and then, come home and beat the dog. Is that really creating a shift, understanding that we are electromagnetic beings, right? In having this physical experience right now, having this earthly experience where, yeah, we're literally made of the elements, everything that we eat, everything that we breathe, this entire container that holds us together is the earth, and we are the earth, right? And that's why we called this show You and the Earth Are One. Yeah, having practices where we can drop in, and at first we remember, and it might feel like a very intellectual or cerebral kind of thing that I'm going to sit down and do. And the more that we practice and that we get into that space, the more we start to feel it. So it's this kind of balance of downloading and uploading the wisdom.
I love how you explain that, downloading and uploading the wisdom that because we are so much in our, in our analytical minds all the time, that's kind of where we start oftentimes, and just be able to okay, I can understand what the elements are because I can actually see water and fire and feel earth, and just to start to understand those at an intellectual level. But when we start to do the practices that help quiet the mind a little bit and help us get more grounded in the body, then we can start to upload the deeper connection to that, so that we can start to experience. Like, I loved how you said that the fire is the spark of our inspiration. And I forget how you did the other elements, like the blood. What did you say the blood was? That was beautiful.
Yeah. And it's a Native American prayer. So is blood, water, my blood, earth, my body, breath, wind, my breath, and fire, my spirit.
I've heard that sung before, and maybe that was probably at a retreat somewhere.
Yeah,
But,
a lot of it's sung in a lot of different circles, and it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes total sense. Well, to us, maybe we're just in our bubble.
Well, and I think something also that's really important is to keep in mind is for all of us that are in a bubble, because I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that people that are listening and are tuning in and are finding this amazing show are in a similar bubble, right? I always say, oh, people from my planet Earth, right? We're connected. We feel attracted, and this information resonates for us, and for us to realize that, I feel that we are, and the astrologers are talking about this shift that we're in, this transition that we're in, a major transition, and having sympathy or empathy, hopefully compassion, understanding that not everyone feels it, not everyone necessarily gets it, and right, it's like people that are victimizers or abusers or whatever label we might put on them, they've also been the victim, and they've also been abused. Like, nothing happens in a bubble. Nothing happens in a vacuum. We are in an environment that is ruled by cause and effect. It's cause and effect, right? That's why it's safe to say whatever I'm experiencing externally is reflecting back what's going on internally in my subconscious, right? Where, according to Bruce Lipton and the epigenetics field, it's like 95% of everything is occurring in the subconscious realms. So we practice yoga, meditation, weaving, basket weaving, dancing, whatever it is, the practice is that brings us into that flow state, right? We talk about this flow state where I know that I'm in a flow state because I'm not thinking about anything that is going to happen in the future. I'm not in the past. I'm very much in that present moment. It can be golf, it can be swimming, it can be surfing, it can be so many practices. And they're all beautiful and powerful because they guide us into that flow state. And it is in that space of being, again, of fully being present, where we can start to observe and just go, oh, that's the sensation. And I don't have words for it. Words fall very short. In fact, when we start to name and
Christy, I believe your internet has kind of gone out. We talked about this right before the show that, she is in the mountains of Costa Rica. So there might be a chance that there might be a glitch. So what I understand, Christy, to be saying, this beautiful flow state is one that we can get into through a wide variety of ways. Like Christy and I both are from the same yoga lineage, and yoga and meditation really work well for us, as well as a lot of earth-based practices. Oh, there she is. You're muted. So I was synthesizing a little bit of what you said about getting into a flow state and how there's a lot of different ways that we can do that. And the most important thing to understand is that when we're in that flow state, just to be with it and observe it, because even right then when you're talking about it, immediately what I want to do when I get in a flow state is try to create something out of it.
It's that moment when you're not thinking and then you go, oh my God, I'm not thinking. Oh, I just thought.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm in a flow state. I should, use it to manifest something. And then of course it's gone.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I don't recall exactly where you went out, but you're really right there in the middle of that flow state explanation, and how that with the ability to just be with it and observe it. And then that's where, I don't know how long you were talking before you realized that
I realized it.
Okay,
the lamp
great.
went out. Yeah. No, I was exactly what you're saying. And then it's like that moment that we might realize it and the cognitive mind jumps in, and then there's a pause because now I'm thinking, oh, I should use this energy for whatever, or I'm actually, I wasn't thinking. And then you pause, and I sense having a good sense of humor is very important. Laugh at yourself a lot. Don't take it too seriously, as it's not serious at all. And it's perfect because it's just about the practice. It's just about, what am I in relation with every day? So not just who am I in relationship with, but what, and within myself, what am I relating to? So when I go outside, can I just pause and reflect and say, wow, the sky is huge, right? Like, look at the sky. Drop down into my feet. I can feel my feet either in shoes. I can feel my feet on the ground. And so we start creating a practice of, it's really just playing in the mind space, because it's where we are all day, right? Some of us more than others. And when we can stop the noise, right? I think it's the Buddhists that refer to it as the monkey that's bouncing around like a maniac. How do we do that? We just take a moment and pause and say, what do I feel? Where's my pelvis in space? What am I sitting on? What is it hard? Is it soft? So we give the mind things to observe. And this is how we practice being in relationship with ourselves, relating back, and the body being the most obvious tool that we have to do that. And, and then we can, get into the wind and to things that might feel a little less tangible, but coming into the body, right? It's why we move the body with asana and a physical practice to prepare for meditation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just, it doesn't stop with just the physical practice. If you take it a little bit further, that's just a preparation so that you can actually sit and observe the mind more and be able to sit longer.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it sounds like these are kind of like rituals that we can do. And so what other rituals can we do to help us connect to, like, you know, the elements of the earth, but also to that information of the earth wisdom that's within us? Do you have anything that you would suggest for our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much, right? Something that is very practical and grounding is to have an altar, is to build an altar in your home. There are many ways to create an altar. A very simple way to create the altar is to find things, and it can be a rock. It can literally be that you go out to the community park. If you've got a garden, put some dirt in a cup, put some water in a cup, a small candle, and the air is the container that's holding all of it. So you've got your elements on a little table in a corner, on a shelf. It can be tiny, it can be really big and elaborate. And things that, right, the items that we collect throughout our lives, if there's something that takes us back to a moment where we felt really good. And sometimes we only have a memory. We don't have a physical item of the thing that made us feel really good. So we can create it for ourselves, right? Maybe it's a little bean that represents a moment, and you know what the bean represents. Again, because we are symbolic beings, we create the altar space. And then we know, okay, whenever I look at that bean on my counter, on my shelf, by my books, it's reminding me to go back to that space where I felt really good, whether it's a memory, whether it's a person, a grandmother, a relationship. There's no right or wrong. And that's something that, as an educator, I really, really, really want to emphasize. There is no way to get anything wrong. There's no way to get life wrong. We're just going through the way that we are, the best that we can. Do we have moments where we think, oh, well, I could do that better next time? And then pausing and saying, instead of it being better, because better is instantly the judge, I'm going to do it different. It's just going to be different. I'm not going to raise my kids any better than my parents raised me. I just might do some things differently. And so I think that having an altar space in your home is very, very powerful. And then ultimately remembering that you were the altar, that even when we don't have that space, or when we're not home, when we're in the middle of the chaos, of dropping in to the body, and right away, where do I feel my clothing, right? Where do I feel my shoes? Again, to drop the mind down and into the body and take a few deep breaths. And that's gonna, again, it requires practice. At first, you might start doing it and feel like you're just crazy. But the more you practice doing it, the more it's just a space that you have within yourself, and you can go to it whenever you need it.
Yeah, you take that altar with you wherever you are. So we are up to our second break, but before we go to break, I just want to say that I love that there's no way to get it wrong, because we always want to judge, we always want to compare, that we can just choose to do it differently, and it doesn't make it better or worse. It just means that you're changing the trajectory. So, and just have that peace with that. So I really appreciate that. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back after this short break. And just know that, women rise and thrive together. And if you have a product or a service that you want to have seen on a global scale, and you want to support the Women Thriving Unapologetically community and radio show, then just reach out to me at thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com, and we can work together to make it happen. So that's thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. And we'll be right back after this short break.
All right, perfect. Good job. All clear. Back in about 2.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. So we have so many things that we've covered and haven't covered. You're just gonna have to come back on the show. I say this to almost everybody.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
We've got good people on.
yeah.
A
And
lot to talk about.
there is so much to talk about. So I think we kind of touched on why trying to get it right is, well, we didn't really talk about why it's a trap, but I loved how, like, you kind of touched on that a little bit. Like, it's not about getting it right. It's just about choosing differently, kind of similar.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's really no one way.
Yeah.
So it's impossible to get it right. Yeah.
And there's one thing that stood out to me, and we can or don't have to talk about it, but this idea of that we're always subconsciously creating. And so it can be really maddening and frustrating when we know that we have all these deep subconscious beliefs and we're, and it can feel like, oh, I'm never going to be able to release these. I'm just always going to be a victim to whatever is in my subconscious mind. And so I'd love to maybe touch on that, or
Mhm.
just talk about maybe a little bit more about how we can create the world that we want.
Mhm. Yeah.
So what feels resonant to you?
Well, I think they go together.
Okay.
They go hand in hand. So yeah, definitely we can talk about that. So it's like, if all of this is occurring without my awareness of it, then what do I do?
Okay. Perfect. We'll talk about that.
Now what?
Yeah. Now what?
All right, coming back in about 10 seconds.
Okay.
VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com.
You're listening to Women Thriving Unapologetically with Lynsie McKeown. Have a question for Lynsie or her guests? Want to share your story? Email Lynsie at thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. That's thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. Now back to the show. Here again is Lynsie.
Hello and welcome back to Women Thriving Unapologetically. So I have a big question for you, Christy. It's because part of that, like earlier this week, I felt like I was going to go a little bit mad in my head because I feel like I've done so much deep inner work and really worked with a lot of belief systems that have held me back. And in that moment where I felt like just giving everything up, I was just like, gosh, do I have these subconscious beliefs? Because I'm very much aware of working with subconscious beliefs and Bruce Lipton's work. And I'm even a Psych K and practitioner and all the things. And I was like, gosh, there's so many. There's so many. How am I ever going to be able to create what I really want if I'm 95% of the time running on these beliefs that are just like little, what do you call it? Like little, I want to say like weeds or something grabbing me, ankle biters. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So relatable. So again, this is why having a practice is so important. And in order to have a practice, we need to have commitment. And we need to be so committed to ourselves, right? Because I think especially as women that want to thrive, we want to do it all, right? So we want to, if we're mothers, partners, educators, artists, creators, right? We're very creative beings. I mean, what have women done most in history is create other humans. Like we are the creative portal. Every single person on this planet has come through the yoni portal, right? So in the same way that we fall into these roles and fall in a really great way. I don't mean to say that like as if we're powerless. Like, no, we take on these roles of being very committed to others, to our work, our legacy, whatever is important for us. The first commitment is this like steadfast connection to ourselves. So what does that look like? How do we do that? So when I feel the weeds grabbing my ankles, when I have to pause and I have to acknowledge it, and I have to look at it and give it a place and say, yes, I see you insecurity. I see you feeling less than, imposter, whatever it is, the theme, because they tend to be themes, right? If we start to get really good at observing ourselves and we get really committed to this relationship with ourselves, we're going to pick up the themes that we might have. Not belonging, right? And then we can sit in a circle and realize, wow, we're all here like healing the same wounds. We all have these wounds of being separated from source or separated from mother and out in this world and feeling not supported enough. So when we notice that, we acknowledge that, and in a way, we put that on the altar. So that when I see, right, my lack of feeling supported, let's say, or lack of feeling connected, or I wish that my community would support me in a different way, I can take that energetically and I can put that on the altar and light a candle and then say, okay, what is something that I can do where I'm going to support myself, where I am going to give myself that which I want to receive. And once I start to create this practice, and again, sometimes we don't have bathtubs, sometimes we don't have daycare and someone taking care of our baby and we're juggling. And I met a family recently that's got 7 kids. Putting our hands on our chest, locking ourselves in the bathroom, I've got to go and use the toilet. And in that moment, I'm going to stay there for a few minutes longer, rather than just rushing through and getting on to the next thing. I'm going to catch myself, pause, even if it's 2 minutes, to take some deep conscious breaths and to energetically leave whatever it is that it doesn't feel good, that I don't want more of. And when I do have those moments of like, wow, I'm so grateful, I'm so blessed, tell the universe, this is it. This is what I want. You know, tapping is really popular now. You can take your fingertips and tap on your chest, tap on your forehead, tap on your gut, and literally tap in the vibration of what you do want into your being and tell the universe, this is it. Yes, please, and thank you. More of this, thank you. I'll take more of this, thank you. And then back to your sharing when we first got on, is like, when we're calling more in of something from the universe, from the energies around us, don't be surprised when you start to feel restrictions and overwhelmed and tight, because you're asking for more. So if your cup is full, even if it's full of sunflowers and lilies and garden fairies, it's still full. So if you want to bring more in, you need to release and let go. You need to make space. And so I love when you asked us to breathe, to make space, because literally when you take a slow and full inhale, your lung capacity literally moves your rib cage. It literally creates space between your joints. So again, know that these things that we might say, take a deep inhale to create space for what you want to bring in. It's a real physiological thing of creating space that's happening, of decompressing. When you decompress your spine, you decompress your organs and your brain, and then you get those vibrational indicators. Oh, this feels so good, right? We get that feedback all the time as movement instructors, like, oh my God, it feels so good when I take your class. Oh my God, it feels so great. And it's like, the more classes you take, the more you'll start to hear that voice become your own voice, because my voice is your voice and your voice is my voice, right? Because we're dancing here, we're reflecting one another. And when we see things and meet things that we don't enjoy or appreciate, there's that opportunity to go into the dusty closet of the subconscious, sometimes, right? Some days more dusty than others, and say, I don't know where you're coming from. I know that you're in here, because if you weren't in here, I wouldn't be experiencing you out there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm going to honor that. I'm going to acknowledge it. If we don't acknowledge,
Christy, we lost. There you are. You're back. If we don't acknowledge it.
it's going to show up somewhere else.
Yeah.
So when we acknowledge it, right, it's we're giving it a place, and then we can do something with it. I think of it as like fertilizer, right? This planet, this creation is so magical and perfect. Nature doesn't do waste. There is no such thing as waste. Even the waste that comes out of our bodies turns into the earth that gives us our food. It's this perfect cycle of creation that we get to be a part of while we're here. And the really wanting to leave everyone with the energy of knowing that you are the creative being here. You're just as important part of creation as the sun and the rain and the earth and the fire. And when we have our moments and we forget, and we call someone that reflects back to you what it is that you want.
Yeah. And that's so important, to have that connection where you can have someone help you remember who you are and why you're here and that you're important. And so we only have about a minute and a half before we are at the end of our show. So I would love for you just to tell us, like, what's one thing that you would like everyone to know? And how can we get in touch with you? How can our listeners connect with you?
Oh, one thing that I would love for everyone to know is that it is all working out for you. Everything is happening for you for your best possible outcome all the time. I'm easy to find. If you know my name, I'm easy to find. I'm Christi Idavoy on the social media, and my website is christiidavoy.com. And I do retreats in Costa Rica that focus on exactly what we've been talking about today. Connection and remembering who we are, sitting in ceremony, and doing yoga and hiking and eating delicious, very nurturing organic food from the farm. And my next retreat actually sold out, which I'm so grateful for. I can't even believe it. And then the one after that for 2023 will be in November 16th through 20th. So that one's going to be focused a lot on water, because it will be the end of rainy season. So we, rather than shying away from doing something in the rainy season, we are going to embrace the beauty and the magic and work with the element of water very deeply. A lot of water rituals.
Lovely. It's piquing my interest for sure. But thank you so much, Christy. So definitely reach out to Christy on all her social media handles, or find her website, and definitely join her in retreat, because you will have a phenomenal experience with her and be in very capable and loving hands. And I really appreciate you being here. And for anyone that's listening, be sure to tune in next week. And again, if you want to support the growth and the sustainability of this show, just consider being a sponsor, and you can just reach out to me, and we can find a really beautiful way for you to do that and to support all the women that are coming on the show and sharing their amazing work. So until next time, many blessings and much love.
Thank you so much, Lynsie. Many blessings.
All right, great job. Good show today. All clear.
Okay.
All right, I got to jump out right away for my
Okay.
next show, but you both have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Let's just jump over to the Facebook group and see. Let's see here. Let me refresh this so I can see current. Okay, let's see. We have a comment here. Through therapy, I realize I have been a consummate chameleon for decades with regard to men in particular. Interesting. And I love there is no way to get life wrong. And I just thank you for sharing. So a lot of the women watch after the show because many people are working at this time. So is there anything else you would like to share that we didn't have an opportunity to share on the live radio? Is there anything you want to share with our group, or do you feel good?
Yeah, just so much gratitude. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for creating the space and for having me on. Yeah, I can really resonate with that chameleon energy. And I think we also need to be really mindful with the chameleon energy of noticing when it can be really fun. And we get to, right, like we have all of these different aspects of ourselves, and we get to play with them in that chameleon kind of space if we take that on as like a spirit animal. And it can also be really exhausting. So being really mindful and noticing ourselves of the moments when we might need to show up and giving ourselves permission to, right, not have to share so much all of the time if we feel like we don't have the energy for it that day. I think also, again, as people that hold space for others, and I always think like, even if you're not a yoga teacher and whatnot, as a woman, you hold space for others all the time, even if you're not a mother. As a woman, again, subconsciously, we are the mother. We are the portal that life comes through. So what an honor, what a gift that we get to experience that. And yeah, and just really, again, honoring ourselves and knowing that it's okay to say no. It's okay to say not right now. And sometimes it's just within ourselves, right? Like what you said of, I might have something to say and it bubbles up in my mind. It doesn't mean it needs to come out of my mouth. It doesn't mean that I need to entangle myself with that other person's energy or the environment's energy. I can just observe and just keep sitting back deeper and deeper. And I feel like my observer is this huge, lazy boy kind of chair. And I just get to like sink back. And there's some days that I'm just like so deep in my observer chair. And I'm just going to participate from there. And it's fine.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. I love that. And Renee says that sometimes we feel like we need to be stoic and keep pushing. Society pushes us, but it's wonderful to remember to listen to Mother Nature. She holds the answers.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I feel, and it's so interesting how, I'm always sit back and observe how like, oh, I'm just been feeling this deeper need to connect more to earth. And I forget that, I get caught up in the whole spin of running a business, and it's just been really coming back. And then I look to all what's going on astrologically and like, oh, I am aligned and attuned to a natural rhythm because I'm naturally starting to remember to come back to these things. And because it's time to come back to those things, like really feeling the pull. And just, I have a lot of earth in my chart. And so it's easier for me just to like, I have a good friend that helps me understand my chart. She's always like, it's easier for you to ground in a natural way. And sometimes you take that for granted because you don't realize how easy it is for you. But don't forget, go out there, put your hands and feet on the earth, because that's one of your powers, and how deeply it nourishes you because it happens so naturally for you. You're not realizing. And so get out there still and connect. And every time I do, I'm like, why do we forget this? Because boom, it's right there. And just be, yesterday I went outside and sat in the sun and I had a conversation with a dandelion. I was like, what is the medicine that you have? Like we think you're a weed, but you're really not. You're incredibly resilient. You are able to root so deeply into the earth that we could pull part of your body off of you, but you will still remain rooted and grounded and create more offspring. And you have so many different seeds that And that was a reminder to me, like, I have to plant like 1,000 seeds for one
To
to take
actually
root.
grow. Right.
Yeah. And I wasn't out there very long, but it was enough, just to take that pause and pull away from all the electronics and put my feet in a very small patch of grass.
Yeah, and that's something really practical and important, is the being aware of the pull that the electronics have on us, the electromagnetic frequencies, and how important it is. Like, again, it's a great tool, and how important it is to get an orgonite, have an orgonite in the house, have something. It's basically a bunch of scraps of metal in epoxy. You can get creative and make them. There's tons of videos on YouTube and stuff on how to make an orgonite. You can also have a big copper wire that is draped across curtains or something. You just put copper wiring around your space so that when the frequencies that we're drawing in through our devices are coming in, they're getting pulled to those centers. So they act like a shield, so that they're not bouncing off of us as much. And then, if possible, turn off the Wi-Fi to go to sleep.
Yeah.
It's bizarre, all of these smart homes, and yeah, it's just wild to me. One of my really practical things when I'm like having a moment of not knowing of, should I eat this? Should I do this? Does this make any sense? I'll pause and I'll ask myself, like, did my ancestors do this 500 years ago? Were people ingesting this 1,000 years ago? Coffee, it's like, coffee's not that bad, right? It's organic coffee. I have my moments where I'm like, I'm Cuban and Puerto Rican. Like we do coffee. We drink a lot of coffee. So I'll use that to say, wait, I don't need to go crazy with all of these studies and information that I might be bombarded with on a certain day around coffee being really bad for my liver or whatnot. And then I'll pause and say, wait a minute, did my ancestors, right? My grandmother lived almost to 100, drank tons of coffee every day. Again, maybe I'm going to do it differently. Maybe I won't drink coffee all day long, but it also doesn't mean that I need to make it the opponent, right? And turn it into this vile force. So I think if we can shield ourselves practically and honor what we know and not get pulled by the convenience and by what's modern and what's new and cool for the sake of it, of fitting in, it's so important that we stand our ground and that we surround and support ourselves with other people, women, that are doing the same thing. Because then we reflect each other.
Yeah. And help each other remember. And
Yeah.
also, we also remember that we're not alone and we don't need to do everything alone.
No.
Yeah.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
No, we can't do it alone.
No, it's another just BS belief of our cultural identity. Like, oh, we're
Exactly.
self-made, and no, you're not.
Yeah. That would be a fun show, right? Like demystifying the BS beliefs of modern day society.
Oh, I'm all for that. Let's definitely plan it. So I really would love to have you back on the show. There's so many things, like if you're still listening, like we had a long list of things that we wanted to cover, and we just got into conversation and let us just be guided organically. But there's a lot of things I would like to do, and demystifying all of those beliefs would be really great.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so thank you again. And I'll gonna go ahead and end the live stream. But if you do have questions, Christy, she's going to be in the Facebook group and answering any questions that you have. And I would love for you to post your retreat that's coming up in November, so everyone has that on their radar, and you can even post it even closer to the date as well. So I want to invite you to do that. And then I'm going to go ahead and stop the live stream. Give me 1 second. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to stop the recording.